A lot of debates. For my first question, it has a couple of different parts. For the first question specifically is, one, is that version of the Scarlet Witch Wanda alive? Clearly, I would hope we would get her back in the MCU because she's like such a big part. Or do you think maybe we might get the multiversal Wanda back that we saw that was in the multiverse in this film? Do we think we get Wanda back at all? And now, since according to Doctor Strange, she's not back in the lunchbox, do you think she still is going to... Do you think this is part of the reason why we talked back early in December when we were reviewing Spider-Man No Way Home, why we think maybe 10 years down the road, Peter Parker might kind of take the reins on that, even though clearly he's not the most powerful. But do you think this is one of those reasons why they start pushing her out of these lead roles, specifically lead roles as in like characters don't look at her as the leader of the team because she's basically betrayed everybody?
So the first part of that question, if I'm not mistaken, was asking if I think our Universe 616 Scarlet Witch or Wanda end up surviving the tumbling of the temple there. So to that part, I think that she did, and I could be wrong here, and maybe it's just me, thinking a little bit too much into it. But if we just take a look at the sequence of events that happened on screen. First, it showed her lifting up the temple and destroying it when she told Doctor Strange that she's the one that opened the Darkhold. She's going to be the one to close it and make sure no one's ever tempted by it again. And she destroys that temple. She lifts the whole damn thing up and it starts crumbling, and she's destroying it. And then, you see it kind of collapse and fall. Then the scene shifts from our universe back to the broken reality universe where Doctor Strange ends up shaking Christine awake. And when she comes to, they realize that the Darkhold is going to be destroyed, but they look to the Darkhold, the book that was on the ground that he was using to dreamwalk into the dead body, Doctor Strange, and it starts burning and turns into ashes. And the minute he tells her, she destroyed the Darkhold, every Darkhold in every universe. And, to me, it's like, if I think about it scene by scene, how could she have done that if she had died in the destruction of the temple? That's just that's the biggest thing that I can go through there, and maybe it's one of those things where the scenes, even though it happened one after another, maybe that was supposed to be happening same time in real time, and maybe it was doing it simultaneously. I don't know, but I'm a big guy on this, and I've always said it. I think I've said it since Game of Thrones. I'm big on, I don't believe anyone's dead till I see the body. I'm 100% 100. I never believe anyone's truly gone until I see the body. So I don't believe our universe Scarlet Witch is dead. She was way too powerful to be destroyed by a collapsing temple, in my opinion, unless she wanted herself to be killed. That I don't really have an answer for. I guess that's a possibility. But that's my thoughts on the first part of that question. Now, the secondary part, you ask if this is why we end up thinking eventually Spider-Man is going to take over as the leader of the Avengers or the Defenders of Earth. I don't even know if they're going to be called the Avengers kind of going forward, just because the majority of them are starting to phase out. Iron Man, Captain America, even, don't want to get anything into it, but we'll talk about it next week, another character as well. And I do agree. I think she's got the power to take on a lead role. I think she's obviously the biggest asset you could possibly have against any sort of evil, force coming to threaten Earth or, any sort of galaxy that needs a hero. She has all the ability, but can you trust her? That's the thing, and I think that's a really good point. And so I don't know that they can trust her, and I think that might be why she can never be the absolute focal point. Because I think I can make the case and the argument that of the original 4 Avengers, Captain America was probably the leader. I know you can possibly debate Iron Man, but I believe people trusted Captain America more than they trusted Iron Man. And so I think this is going to be a very similar type situation, because obviously Iron Man has had more power than Captain America with the use of the technology he developed in the suit and all of that. He was definitely stronger, but it's like, could you really trust Iron Man? He wanted to, take the governor's side, the people's side, instead of he was against their own freedom, and it ended up causing a split, and that's where we got Captain America: Civil War, So it's one of those things that can you trust her? And I don't think they can. So that's my answer to the first, part 1 and 2 of your first debate there.
And to aid your point there about Iron Man, remember even worse was, I think it was Iron Man 2, he got like drunk and was throwing a party at his house and was wearing the Iron Man suit.
Oh, good point. Honestly, let me take one more. I want to make more point about that. Remember, the people who were in charge, the board of whatever, they didn't even want Robert Downey Jr. to be Iron Man. I should say,
yeah.
Tony Stark. They didn't
Stark,
want Tony Stark to be Iron Man because they couldn't trust him. What did he say? He went up on the podium and in the interview said, "I am Iron Man." No one could trust him. He was one of those guys just on his own, off for his own benefit. He was doing things on his own time. He was marching to the beat of his own drum from the very beginning. So much for the fact that the people, the board of whatever, didn't even want Tony Stark to be Iron Man, but they had no one else that could figure out how to use the suits and stuff yet. So and then obviously he ended up coming around and playing a huge role. But yeah, that it's hard to trust him. 100% hard to trust him.
He was a true wild card, and I think that's the problem. I think we do get Wanda back. Like, I'm a big believer, just like you said, in the fact of if you don't see the body, I think it's still there. I do think at some point, somehow, the other multiverse Wanda will come into play. Maybe that's kind of how maybe Scarlet Witch kind of turns more back into her normal self later on. And I don't think if she can take on an entire Illuminati, I don't think a building's going to stop Scarlet Witch. Like, I don't think it's possible. But as far as the trust factor comes into play, I think you brought up a very big point there, is just like Tony Stark. Like, Tony Stark, can have a party at his house and not kill anyone, but still collapses a building. And even goes into fighting for people that did get collapsed by a building, full circle moment from Wanda in Captain America Civil War, and they still didn't trust him. Much less are they gonna trust Wanda, which has already been a wild card because she's been killing people from collapsing on buildings, just being reckless, with basically on Iron Man's team and Captain America's team doing this. And now she's definitely out of the lunchbox because she went AWOL against an entire army, first of all. And that was her being reasonable, also using the Darkhold.
Don't forget, she in WandaVision 2, all the shit she did in her own series, all the stuff she did about Westview as well. She went full psycho there too. So this is just another evidence to what you were saying. But yeah, continue on with her destroying the whole civilization of Kamar-Taj.
Yeah, man. I mean, and before I move on to the second question, what I want to ask you about this is, because you brought up a really good point. Like, it should have been called Scarlet Witch and the Multiverse of Madness. I mean, Doctor Strange has his own 2 films now. I mean, I think Wanda she got her own series, WandaVision, with Vision in there. I think that's great. But I think she really deserved, with how she's been with the Avengers since Avengers 2, and really been even in Captain America Civil War and stuff. I think, you're giving all these people their own films, even like Black Widow and all this other stuff. Why has Wanda not had her own film? I don't really agree with that either, because I think she has the potential to be able to be given her own film, so I just think it's kind of ridiculous. Captain Marvel has her own film, but yet Scarlet Witch has been here the whole time. Wanda has been here the whole time, and she doesn't have her own film. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that it's not too late to give her own film, because even if we let's just say, for example, we accept the fact that she's dead in our universe. Keep in mind, the Black Widow getting her own movie didn't happen until after Endgame, which she's dead. Black Widow's gone, and she's now just getting her standalone film. You know what I mean? So it's not I think it's very possible that we could get a Scarlet Witch standalone film later on, very similar to X-Men and Wolverine. The X-Men series came out, and then we ended up getting X-Men Origins Wolverine, then we got Logan, then we got a bunch of other stuff that had to do with him as well. So it's just because the sequence of events have happened the way they've happened doesn't mean that they won't go back and give her own film. So I definitely think that it will happen. I just don't think it happened on the timeline people were expecting.